Welcome to Beyond the Break, a podcast where we dive deep into the stories behind today's entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers, and we uncover what it takes to build something that lasts. Let's get started. Beyond the Break.
All right, Chuck, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, welcome to Beyond the Break, a podcast where we're going to talk with Chuck Bryant today, who's a partner at Kennedy Capital and has a really interesting background. First serving our country in the Army as a Army Ranger, moving on for many years, then into the investment world. And we'd love to hear a lot about your background. So welcome, Chuck.
Thanks. Good to see you, buddy.
All right, so let's start there. I'm fascinated by the military, especially those who serve our country. I want to thank you for your service. But tell us what you were in college studying. What were you studying when you started at college?
So originally I was living in Sarasota, Florida, and I was going to junior college, and I wasn't probably taking it all that seriously.
All right.
And didn't sort of just want to flounder around. And so and my father had always said, a young guy doesn't know what he wants to do, he should join the military. So I didn't want to kind of flounder around anymore. And so, so I went and I enlisted, and I wanted to do something a little different and challenging. And my dad and his uncles were Navy men, but I kind of thought, So I went and kind of did a little bit of research, and I'm like, this Ranger thing looks kind of cool. These guys jumping out of planes and, jumping out of helicopters and getting into Zodiacs, and that looked kind of neat and exciting. And I thought, that looks kind of cool.
It does.
It looks kind of fun. So it was, I don't know, it was about that. So I said, this looks challenging and great. And they had, the Army College Fund and the GI Bill. And I thought, okay, I'll go in, I'll do 4 years, it'll help me kind of grow up and mature. And when I get out, I'll go to college. And that's sort of how it worked out, kind of how I ended up getting out of the Army was a whole nother deal. But but that's sort of how I got in.
All right.
And I kind of didn't know when I went in, I honestly was not overly confident that I would make it. The failure rate's fairly high. Okay. So after you go through basic training and airborne school and all this, they send you to ominously called RIP. It's the Ranger Indoctrination Program. And
Where's that?
That's at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
And that is, there's a Ranger school, and a lot of officers, people that go to West Point or whatever, they will send them to Ranger School, which is run by the Department of the Army. The 75th Ranger Regiment is the unit that actually deploys, that goes to war as Rangers.
Okay.
And I wanted to be part of the Ranger Regiment. Now, if you're in the Ranger Regiment, you also do go to Ranger School, but I wanted to be part of the Ranger Regiment and deploy. So the RIP program, I mean, in any given class, it's 50%, 60% washout.
Okay.
So, and then you just are sent to sort of maybe the 82nd Airborne or another unit or whatever. So I wasn't overconfident that I would make it, but I sort of had this all through RIP and Ranger School. Ranger School is not pleasant. It's designed
how
to be.
How long is Ranger School?
It was about 70 days.
Oh, okay. What's a typical day?
Well, you don't sleep.
Really? Okay.
And you don't. So in Ranger School, they can't actually shoot at you. Mm-hmm. So to create, and Ranger School is more of a leadership school than sort of like teaching you hand-to-hand. You do a lot of that, but it's really leadership for infantry officers and non-commissioned officers. And to create sort of the stress of battle, it's sort of easy to be a team player when we'd say you've had 3 hots and a cot. You're like right now, we've got a good night's sleep, we're well fed, we're comfortable. Like I can be a team player, but if you deprive me of food and sleep for days on end,
tests you.
It tests you. It's much harder to lead, and it's much harder to follow and be a team player. And so that they put that stress on you. So you don't sleep in Ranger School, and you would be, sometimes we do jumps, we do patrols or whatever. And it was certainly very challenging. And I just kind of had this mantra that I would wake up every day, and you had a Ranger buddy, and it's like, well, I'm not going to quit today. I may quit tomorrow, but I'm not going to quit today. And I would wake up every day and be like, okay, well, I didn't quit yesterday. I'm not going to quit today.
So you break it into smaller pieces.
Just,
right?
I'm not going to quit today.
Yeah.
And and that was sort of how that's how mentally I kind of fought through the hard times and kind of got through it.
That's a good way to approach life, though, right? When
Not
you have
bad.
when you have a really big challenge in front of you, you can't maybe solve it all in one day or 1 week or 1 month, but you
Break
just
it up
take
into bites,
little
and
smaller parts.
accomplish that little bite, and then move on.
Yeah. I heard a great quote from a Navy SEAL who was interviewed on John Gordon. He talked about the goal is just to get to breakfast.
Correct.
And similar to you, get through the day.
Yep.
So you got through 70 days.
Made it through that. Yeah. So ultimately I ended up in the Ranger Regiment. There were 3 Ranger battalions. There's a regimental headquarters and 3 battalions. So I was in 3rd Ranger Battalion, which is at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then do you get deployed, or what are you doing once you're in the Army and active?
So once you
graduate?
get to the Ranger Regiment, so now you are deployable.
Mm-hmm.
When you get there, you're a private and you're sort of you're a nothing. You're not treated very well.
Mm-hmm.
There definitely was sort of a lot of, you have to sort of earn your way in, and a big thing is you actually have to spend about a year in the battalion to earn a slot to go to Ranger School.
Okay.
And then once you go to Ranger School, and Ranger School has a high washout rate too, if you go through and you come back from Ranger School and you graduate Ranger School and you've earned your Ranger tab, now you've made it.
Yeah.
Right now you're kind of a made man in the Ranger world. Like now you get respect, and you're like, but until you sort of go to Ranger School and earn your tab, like you're sort of not fully, like you're doing all the crappy jobs and all that. Like it's kind of how it works.
So is anything like in the business world now, you've been working for 20, 30 years beyond, can you draw upon those experiences and say, today this is a tough project I'm working with, or a tough client, or a bad situation, and nothing compares to what you've been through?
Well, it's relevant. My military career is there's a lot of years past it, but you for sure, like nothing. If you have a long day, or you like whatever, we travel a lot, and it's frustrating. You miss a flight and you end up stuck in an airport, or we've got to grind out to get this RFP out for a piece of business we're working on, or whatever. Like, I mean, we're still like, we're in a great industry. We're well compensated. We're going home and sleep, in our warm bed. Like, it's not that bad, right?
It's a beautiful reset.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I don't have to sleep. I'm not sleeping on the ground under a tarp in the rain. So it's fine.
All right, that's good. Like, it's very cold in this room right now. You can tolerate it, right?
We're gutting through it, Chris. Yeah.
Well dressed, comfortable. If you want to
Sure.
warm up, we can get a coffee. So
Right.
That's good. It puts it all in perspective. So then you're done with that, and then did you go to college after that?
So I did I spent 4 years in, and had, some, and I think in the 4 years I spent, I feel I had, I don't know, I was blessed or whatever to have some fairly interesting, sort of things happen. I made it through Ranger School and all that, and became an NCO, and in the battalion, I got sent to Army Sniper School.
Oh, really?
Which was very cool. That was a neat experience. And I'm not sort of naturally a great shot,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like Annie Oakley or something, but for the period of time that we did the record fire that counted towards graduating sniper school, somehow I just kind of was shot out of my mind.
Really?
Like once in a while you go out on the golf course and just have a great day.
Yeah.
And so I ended up being Top Gun at Army Sniper School, which was very cool.
Wow, that's great.
And truly, like, I think there were 24 people in that class. Probably 20 of them were better shots than I was. But for that period of time, so that was kind of neat. I was very proud of that. And then in December of 1989, this is going back a ways, but the dictator of Panama was Manuel Noriega. Noriega was causing also, he had actually been sort of an asset, a CIA asset, and then he kind of went rogue and he was causing problems. And ultimately the Bush administration decided that they had to take him out. They killed a couple of US servicemen that were stationed down there and whatever. So I was part of, that was Operation Just Cause on December 20th, 1989. And I parachuted into Rio Hato, which was one of their main military bases. So I was sort of, I was part of that. That was terrifying. I mean, jumping into combat was scary, but it's interesting because, we just used the B-2 bomber, the stealth bomber. The first time that we used that in a real world situation was the invasion of Panama. And so we jumped into Rio Hato and they used those bombers. They wanted to see if the technology worked.
Oh, wow.
So they dropped like 2,000-pound bombs. I don't remember exactly what the ordinance was, but they actually dropped it sort of just in the empty jungle because they didn't want to kill thousands of people, but they did use them. So they preceded us. They preceded us by 1 minute when we jumped in, and it was kind of like a shock and awe like this. So yeah, that was that was like the first time we used that technology that we just, used to go to take out the Iranian bunkers.
So the Army is all about training and being prepared for those moments. How much did you rely on your training, or how much did you feel like, all right, I got this. This is similar to what I've been through, but now you're really going into hostile territory?
Chris, people think when you go into when we jumped into Panama, certainly there was, certainly the first night there was a lot of fighting it wasn't like the invasion of Normandy or something, but it was legit. I mean, it was certainly the first few days, there was definitely a lot of fighting. When it comes down to that, it's not patriot. So maybe you join the Army because you're patriotic or whatever. Mm-hmm. When that happens, when you have to overcome fear, because standing in an airplane and you're going to jump out of an airplane into a combat zone and they're shooting up at the plane, you're scared. Yes. You have to overcome that fear. And the reason that you ultimately overcome those fears is because when the shooting stops and the sun comes up the next morning, I want to be able to look you in the eye and I did my job, right?
To your teammates,
to the guys you serve with. So you think about, how in the Civil War did guys walk across open fields into a gauntlet of fire, and how did they do that? Because you have to do your job, and when the shooting stops, if I'm alive, I want to be able to look around to the guy on my left and right and say, hey, I did my job. I was not a coward. I did my job. I fought through. And
it's an amazing mindset.
In combat, that is what sort of drives you to sort of overcome the natural fear. Of course, everyone has fear. It's natural, right? People are shooting at you. That scares you, right? How do you overcome that? And it's that I have to do my job for the guy on my left and the guy on my right.
I love that. And that's another thing you draw on for the rest of your life, right?
Oh, sure.
Whether it's with a coworker, whether it's on a team that you're working on, or in our industry, we all can share information and help each other out as well. So it's a great mindset to have overall. Yeah. And so you mentioned Normandy. I know you have an interesting story when you went there a few years ago.
So
right?
I went for the 80th anniversary of Normandy was a year ago, June. And so I have a handful of my Ranger buddies that I served with that I've stayed very, very close to. They're superb guys. And obviously it's a very special bond. And so we went over for the 80th anniversary. And one thing that people don't know, when you watch the ceremonies on TV from the United States, they're very solemn and somber, and the president's laying a wreath and whatever. Normandy is a big party.
Uh-huh.
It's a 3 or 4 day party. This is for the people of Normandy. This is a huge celebration, right?
Rightfully so. Yeah.
And so when you're there, everyone is having just a fantastic time.
Oh, that's great.
And so all of these little towns and cities, they are just alive, and everyone in cafes, and everyone is partying and having a great time. And so when the United States left, we left behind all of this equipment, Jeeps and trucks and stuff. Well, a bunch of these were saved and they've been restored.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a whole group of people that have these Jeeps and trucks and stuff that we left, and they keep them and lovingly maintain them, and they bring them out and they all dress up
Oh my God.
as like British or American soldiers. The women dress up as like nurses or USO gals, and so just groups of Jeeps will be running along the beach, like, and they go kind of, bar hopping, and it's phenomenal.
Oh
it's
my.
very fun.
Got to get over there.
So it is a tremendous. So in addition to being very meaningful and impactful, which it truly is, it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had the pleasure of going over. A couple of my Ranger buddies and we went over and rented a house in Normandy, and it was extraordinary. And they love U.S. soldiers, and they love former Rangers. They love Rangers over there because, of course, we stormed the beaches and Point du Hoc and all that. So being a Ranger over there was a lot of fun. They like us. So one day we were in a little town. And we were at this cafe, and the town was just packed, and just people are partying in the streets, and it was great. And we found this little cafe about a block off the kind of main drag, and we sat in this like beautiful courtyard, and we had ordered a couple of bottles of wine, and we're hanging out. And as my three buddies and our wives, and a couple of gentlemen come in, as an older looking distinguished gentleman, and then two active duty soldiers, and they came in and they sat down, and we started talking to them. We're wearing Ranger hats and stuff, and they're like, "Oh my God, you guys are Rangers!" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we started talking to them, and so we were saying, "Well, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
Why are you here?" And he said, "Well, did you ever see the movie Monument Men?" And with George Clooney, and so I'm like, "Yeah, years ago, but yeah, it was really a cool movie."
I've never seen that.
So the Monument Men was about a military unit that they formed. The Nazis were basically pilfering everything from Europe, all the treasures. Right.
Yeah.
They were taking all the great artworks, and like, this is our history, right?
Yeah.
And they were taking it. And so the Monument Men was created to go out and protect it and either get it or get it back. Okay. So there was this unit that was created. Okay. And so anyway, so the colonel, I was talking to the colonel and sitting kind of like where you are. And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we're the Monument Men."
The people that
the Army recreated this unit. And this colonel was the leader of the unit. And he said, and that gentleman is Robert Edsel. He wrote the book.
Oh, really?
So the author of the Monument Men, Robert Edsel, and then the captain. And so we ended up having a couple of bottles of wine and talking. And this guy has written 6 or 7 books. And so he wrote the book that became the movie.
Oh, wow.
And he was just a phenomenal gentleman. He was unbelievable. Told us the story of when they viewed, he got to go with George Clooney to the White House with the Obamas to view the movie.
Oh, wow.
So he's like told that experience.
Yeah.
And so, we sat and hung out with him. It was very, very neat. And he ended up sending us like autographed books and stuff.
Oh, man.
So it was and we got to go as former Rangers. We got invited to sort of a ceremony out on the cliffs of Point du Hoc.
Oh, my gosh.
And they had this, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was very cool. So it was very neat. Yeah.
What a great
Makes
way
you
to
very
put
proud to be an
nature.
American.
Yeah, that's spectacular for sure. What a great experience. So now you've built up all this experience of training and overcoming adversity and dealing with stuff, and then you enter the working world. So what got you in the investment world?
That's so when I got out of the military, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it a career or not, but I ended up breaking my back. So I'm medically retired in the military.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm medically retired. No, I'm fine, obviously. But I didn't have a choice, right?
Okay.
So like so I had to get out. So that's fine. And I wanted to go to college. And I somehow thought that finance, I read an article in Newsweek or something that there were more corporate CEOs that had finance degrees than anything else. I guess I'll go get a finance degree.
All right.
So,
the little things that just somehow change
it's
your
weird,
life.
right? So I thought, well, I guess I'll get a finance degree then, even though I'm not particularly good at math. So when I went out, I did community college, and then I ended up going to Stetson University here in Florida. And they had an investment program called the Roland George Investment Program, which is somewhat unique. At the time, it was fairly novel, where the students managed an actual Roland George donated $500,000 and said, I want the students to manage the money. Okay. So somewhat unique program. And I went there for that program. And through that program, I met Jerry Kennedy, who was the founder and the CEO of Kennedy Capital Management.
Oh, okay. I see.
And Jerry was a guest lecturer of the Roland George program. I asked the professor if I could meet with him because I had St. Louis ties. And so Jerry Kennedy met with me when he came down to lecture, and he hired me as an intern.
No way.
And that's
spectacular.
So that's how I ended up at Kennedy Capital.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your whole career has been in Kennedy then. In this industry, I think, the way we can work with our competitors or, people that are also in the investment industry. And now you've taken on an additional role as a trustee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what led you down that path?
So I knew I was I started working out with a gentleman in Missouri who was running for governor, and he ended up getting elected, and the governor has appointments on boards. And I knew the team that ran the Missouri Pension Board. PSRS, Peers, is the Missouri Teachers Pension Board.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the biggest, I think now it's 60 billion.
Big system.
It is a big system. So the governor has a couple of appointments, sort of at-large appointments. And the guys that ran the plan said, you could be a pretty decent trustee, and the governor. And so I mentioned it to the governor, and he said, sure. So we can make that happen. You seem qualified for that. So I was appointed by the governor back like 2017. And then my term expired, and then I got reappointed by the current governor, and I've been doing it now for another 2 years. And it's been fantastic. To your point, I feel incredibly blessed to have been in this industry. It's been really, really good to me. I think you feel the same way.
Oh, definitely.
And and I believe in public funds. I believe, our cops and our firefighters and our teachers, they don't get wealthy. Mm-hmm. And I think the sort of moral contract we have with them is, if you put your 25 or 30 years in, we're going to provide you with a comfortable retirement.
Yeah.
And I think we owe those people that. And so to be part of that is great. And then to be able to give back a little bit, if I have some experience and knowledge that I can contribute on the pension fund and bring that to bear, it's fantastic to have a chance to give back. So
I love that they have you on that board, because there's some of those boards it's just political appointments, and it's just some random person who thinks it's a great idea. But to actually have someone like yourself who can help them when they're talking about asset allocation, when you're talking about manager selection, and you've got a great staff over there. I know it's fantastic with a lot of people who know the industry, but to have someone in your seat who's been in the business for 20, 30 years is
I think it's additive for them. Certainly I benefit from it immensely.
What have you learned now that you sit through like a manager search or asset allocation?
The biggest thing that I learned, so I work for Kennedy Capital Management, is we're a great small cap, bottom up small cap shop, fundamental manager. And if we're hired by a pension fund and we're in a portfolio, certainly the work that Waycross does or Kennedy Capital does, it matters, right? Yep. And how well we perform, it is impactful. But one of the big thing that I've learned is, but the much more important decision is whether we're going to put 4% or 2% in small cap value or large cap.
The asset allocation.
The asset allocation is the far bigger driver of returns than whether you hire me or our competitor.
Yeah.
It matters, but it kind of matters on the margin. That asset allocation is the much bigger thing that moves the needle. And how much are we, what kind of a private equity program are we going to have, and private credit and all that. And so that has been a real education for me. And that I've gotten a lot out of that.
And have you changed has the plan changed the course of that at all? Like as far as the asset allocation got more aggressive or conservative?
The biggest thing is just the amount of privates, private credit, private equity.
Sure.
And, that's a program. If we're going to hire Waycross to manage a large cap core mandate, that's fairly straightforward. Yeah. Or if you're going to hire me to run a small cap mandate. But private equity is a commitment; it's a program, right? And so
There's a lockup,
right? And you do fund one, and then theoretically you're doing fund two, and because of the sort of J curve issue and all that, so it's a commitment to a program. It takes a long time to build that out, and then it takes. One of the interesting things that our fund can do, and we have a big investment team, and they're very, very capable, is we are investing with private equity, private credit managers, but then we can do direct or co-investments.
Oh, okay.
And so our team can do so, this underlying investment within a fund, if that company wants to raise another several $100 million, we can do that additional due diligence and make another bet. And then we're maybe put another 25 or $50 million to work. We run $60 billion and we don't pay fees. Right.
Oh, okay.
And so the size of our staff allows us to save. This is the difference of like, say, $1 billion pension fund versus a $60 billion pension fund. You're steering a battleship, but you also can do things that smaller plans can't have. So we save, hundreds of millions of dollars in fees from being able to do private placements and, I find all that very interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
Fun. Yeah.
Well, it's a great experience for you, and I think they're fortunate to have you there. And I wanted to just touch on one story, which I love. The first time I met you, do you remember where it was? On the
Lake of the Ozarks?
Yes.
So, at the MAPERS, the Missouri Association of Public Employee Retirement Systems.
Correct.
MAPERS, which is at Lake of the Ozarks.
So I was a guest of my friend who brought me there, Don Frank, and he introduced us.
Mutual friend of ours. Yep.
So at the time, you were doing triathlons, right? The full Ironman distance.
I was doing half Ironmans.
Okay.
I never did a full, but I did a bunch of half Ironmans.
Which is swim is
1.2 mile swim. It's a 60 something mile bike and then a half marathon.
Yeah, just to cap it off. So you're training for that. I'm training for a sprint triathlon, which is itty bitty. Takes about an hour and 20 minutes total. So if you remember, we went swimming one morning.
Oh, we were going to do an open, because we were talking
swim.
about, you were nervous about the open water swim.
Yes.
And I said, well, Chris, we have a lake. Look, right here.
So it seems innocent. Yes, I'll get to swim with Chuck. You're in great shape. And if you remember, we start swimming and we leave the dock. And I had up to that point only swam 500 yards in a pool with a stripe on the bottom, and you could stand up at any moment or grab a wall. So then we start swimming out, and we're swimming out into the middle of the lake. And then I realized not only have I swam 10 times, maybe 20 times further than ever, but now we have to swim back. That's, and I'll tell you, I did not serve the military. Nothing touches your military stories, but that was my moment of, I've got to do this.
I've got to overcome this.
Yes. There's no turning back. I've basically burned the boats.
I've kind of committed myself here and I'm in it and okay.
Yeah, it's a horrifying thought, but it is amazing what you are capable of.
We're capable of much more. Yeah.
It's fascinating. And I know there's so much military training that is based on that premise of you can do so much more. So much as you're mentally limited, but your body can do more. And I think, it was a great experience for me. I finished the swim, and I think total was probably almost a 2 mile swim.
Yeah, we swam a pretty good amount. That
was before the GPS watches where we could get all fancy. But I don't
point it over there and we'll swim across and back.
I think of that a lot now. I kite surf, so there's times where I'm in precarious situations, and I know no matter what, I'm getting out of it. And
you have the confidence, hey,
yes, yeah, and believe it or not,
I did this. I have the confidence.
Yeah, that experience
to come through it
taught me some. So it is really neat. Like you just draw on your past experiences, and like you said, now we're in the business world, and nothing's too difficult, nothing's too daunting, and what you can bring that to your teammates as well.
Yeah.
And people who might not have been through those experiences can learn from you and say, you know what, we can push forward. We can get this RFP done. We can travel to 3 different cities in 2 days quickly and deal with it.
We can make that. And you alluded to something a few minutes ago, and I wanted to touch on that. One of the uniquenesses of the business is, and it's something that makes the job so rewarding and enjoyable, is that very few industries where you have people that are direct competitors that are such good friends and help each other out.
Yeah.
And really work together and make introductions for people. And it's like there's enough business to go around. And occasionally we might be going head to head on one piece of business, but in aggregate that happens rarely. And so if I can make an introduction for you to somebody that I know or vice versa, and that aspect of our business is amazing. So we're at a conference right now in Orlando, and we have how many friends that we've known for literally decades that we help each other out and we work together. And that makes the industry,
I love it.
It's so fantastic,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you and I have been friends for many years, and like, it's so great, the relationships and friendships that we have like that. I think that's somewhat unique. I don't know.
I think of other industries that it's cutthroat, and I feel like it translates to the consultants feel the comfort amongst us and the trustees as well. So, and it helps everybody build a level of trust, which is so important, because at the end of the day, we're charged with managing money for people's retirement, and it's a huge responsibility that we all take so much to heart.
It is, and as much as it's a numbers-driven business, and you at Waycross and your team delivers great results, and my team delivers great results. Mm-hmm. The reality is there are a lot of high-quality large cap core managers or small cap value managers or whatever, and so ultimately people are more comfortable working with somebody that they have a level of trust with and they have a relationship with, because there are a lot, and that's where that matters. And so if there's somebody who I have a good rapport with and I can introduce and be like, hey, you do your due diligence and you do your work, but I promise you that, like Chris Greco and his team, these are good people.
Yeah.
Right. You got to do the analysis yourself and decide whether this fits in your portfolio, and is it, but in terms of, are you working with good people? Like that, I will vouch for, right? Like and I think that's been great. You and I have shared that through the years, and it's been great.
And it shows through also when there's tough times, right? When the performance numbers might not be good, but you got to trust that marketing or client service person is going to communicate that back to you, and you can translate to your board as well as what's going on, because you know that Chuck Bryant said, this is what happened last quarter, but in the bigger picture, it means X, Y, Z.
Right.
So,
well, and you know this, that client service is way more fun when you're outperforming.
Oh yeah, the quick meeting.
Right? Oh yeah, it's great. It's great to walk in when you beat the benchmark by 400 or 500 basis points last year, but no strategy, no firm or strategy outperforms every year all the time. We all go through like that's and it's being proactive and picking up the phone and staying. And you can't start the dialogue then, right? It's too late to build a relationship, right? And build that level of trust. That has to start kind of all along.
Yeah.
So that when if there are changes at the firm that you have to work through, and they happen to all firms, or periods of underperformance, that's when that trust and that relationship matters.
Yeah. And
that's where our clients know that we're being honest with them, that we're giving them, that we're, when if it's firm changes or again, performance issues, that we're being forthright with them, and they know that they trust us, and they know that and we see people that sort of do violate that trust, and those relationships don't last long.
No, they flame out fast. Well, Chuck, I really enjoyed having, the name of the podcast is Beyond the Break. I didn't realize we'd tie into your broken back, but look at what you've done since a broken back in the day. So
I will tell you this. I feel incredibly, incredibly blessed to have sort of had the life I've had, to have been part of this business. It's been really, really good to me. And as I mentioned, one of the great things is to have friends like you in the business to share it with.
Love it, brother. Thanks for being on today.
You got it.
Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Break. If this conversation brought you value, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. We've got more real stories, sharp insights, and powerful turning points coming your way. See you next time.